first session. We are now all set to, move over to our second session, where we have a very special guest amongst us, Shri Santosh Kumar Taneja ji. And Sir has such a stellar background and experience behind him. So I'm very sure that we all, will benefit immensely from Sir's talk as well. I now request Dr. Smriti Singh to please welcome Sir formally.
सर, आपका इस मीटिंग में, हमारे इस एफटीपी में, हमारे इस रिफ्रेशर कोर्स में, क्योंकि आप हमारे चीफ पेट्रन भी हैं, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है सर। आपके आने से हमारा जो प्रोग्राम है वो और भी ज्यादा सफल हो गया, क्योंकि आपकी प्रेरणा हमेशा कॉलेज के ऊपर बनी रहती है। और जब भी हम कोई नए कार्यक्रम को लेके जाते हैं, प्रिंसिपल मैम के साथ आप वो हमें हैप्पीली अप्रूव करके देते हैं, बीइंग अ चेयरमैन, और उसमें आप हमारी सपोर्ट भी करते हैं। इट इज वेरी इंस्पायरिंग कि आज आप हमारे प्रोग्राम में आए हैं। वी वुड बी वेरी हैप्पी टू लिसन टू यू, एंड व्हाटएवर यू हैव, जो हम गाइडेंस हम ले पाएंगे, जो हम आज आपसे सीख पाएंगे, वो हमारी जिंदगी भर के लिए जाएगा। थैंक यू सो मच। ओवर टू नूपुर।
Thank you, ma'am. Now I will like to introduce our esteemed guests for today. Just give me a second. I'm sharing my screen. Yeah. So, Shri Santosh Kumar Taneja ji is our honorable chairperson of the governing body of Maitri College. Shri Taneja ji has worked as a civil engineer 1968 onwards. He acquired this degree from Thapar Institute of Technology in Punjab. Sir has worked in the government sector for over 30 years before retiring as a chief engineer from Housing and Urban Development Corporation in 2003. As part of his work, Sir also visited almost all the states of the country for the sake of various projects. He also worked in Europe, Middle East, Southeast, USA, Canada as part of the government assignments given to him. Shri Santosh Taneja ji has also headed Bharat Prakashan Publishing, two of the All India magazines titled Organizer and Panchjanya, where he was the managing director on honorary basis for 7 years, from 2003 to 2010. In 1986, Shri Santosh Kumar Taneja ji founded a social educational organization named Sankalp, which has now become a brand name for aspirants preparing for IAS, IPS, and IFS services. Up till now, more than 7,000 aspirants have benefited from Sankalp, and they've all joined civil services. And during the last 7 years, the percentage of success in the yearly result has been more than 60% overall. Shri Santosh Taneja ji has recently picked up the issue of professional education, such as engineering, medical, chartered accountancy, management, etc., to be provided in major Indian languages. Also, as 90 to 95% of our population in the country cannot read and write correct English, and therefore they are deprived of quality education. So this contribution by Shri Santosh Taneja ji, whereby he proposed that this kind of a professional education should also be available in Indian languages. This contribution is very, very important and significant, and it has also been considered by the government of India favorably, and an announcement regarding the same was made by Prime Minister of India as well. So we heartily welcome you, sir, and I'm sure listening to such an eminent personality, we can no longer wait to hear Taneja sir talk. And because so many of our participants, हम सब लोग जो है क्योंकि देश के अलग अलग राज्यों से जुड़े हुए हैं, तो और सर ने इसके प्रति भी काफी काम किया है कि जहां पर उन्होंने इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस को काफी इम्पोर्टेंस और सिग्निफिकेंस दी है, तो आई एम श्योर हम सभी जो हैं सर को सुनने के लिए वेट कर रहे हैं. So we formally welcome you, sir, and I now request you to please address the gathering. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Smriti and all other staff members if they are there, and welcome and good wishes to all the participants who are there. Can I generally know how many participants are there in this program?
So, yeah, yes, sir. Sir, about three.
Sir, there are 376 participants.
They are at the moment they are attending.
Sir, it is at the moment. I don't know how many. Nupur, can you tell me?
Yes, ma'am. At the moment, we have 196 participants who are listening to sir.
But
Great.
it is like, you know, it is like कभी network किसी का चला जाता है because all over the country से लोग हैं, और उसमें क्या होता है कि network चला जाता है लोगों का, वो हो जाता है, फिर join करते हैं लोग वापस, ऐसे होता है.
आश्चर्य ये है कि अभी आपका एक सेशन कंप्लीट हुआ है,
या
कोई ब्रेक नहीं दिया है, टी ब्रेक, वाटर ब्रेक, और आप
नहीं
ये एक्सपेक्ट कितने 1.5 घंटे का वो भी सेशन था, 1.5 hour सेशन, इट शुड हैव बीन अर्लियर आल्सो.
Yes, sir.
How much patience you are going to test of your participants? As much as possible, and it will be more like chit-chatting rather than making it a formal one. Though I had prepared a lecture which could be of 10 pages and long lecture, but now knowing these facts, I will not commit this mistake. So thanks all who are still continuing to listen. And now my subject of the session today is how to make higher education dynamic and useful. Now, I would like to start with that when we talk these things, we are not supposed to forget the Indian context. And when we are talking about education, context of India, as well as what are the expectations of the world from India. Now, I would start with, recently there was a comment from UN that though India is doing very well, but India has a much larger role to play, which it is still not able to play. Where was the hint? What was the indication? Indication was that India's long past of thousands and millions of years has left a deep impression on the people of the world that they stand for human peace, peace of humanity. They stand for spirituality. They stand for harmony in universe and such like things. We might be knowing that recently Ram Dev Ji was invited in UN to address a common session of UN. What they wanted to know from him was that how the expenditure on health and maintenance of health of people could be minimized, how it could be made possible to get support of medicines as less as possible, to save health from various diseases. And for that matter, I would say our yoga and pranayam, etc., are so much liked by the world all over, that now the kind of health, good health solutions it is providing, it is non-parallel system. Now, Yoga Day is also celebrated all over the world. So this is one small extension of our spirituality. Our spirituality has been worked upon so deeply because we have never thought of just one section of the society, just one geographical entity of the society. We have always thought, as we have a very clear shloka, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. We are looking for the wellness of all. Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashantu Ma Kaschit Dukh Bhag Bhavet. So these are our guiding principles. And that is why word expects from us in a different way. And we'll be missing our role if we are not performing it. And that is why the UN mentioned that much larger role is expected to be played by India. Now, one small thing which I would like to mention, like the topic is how to make higher education dynamic and useful. Now the point is, unless until we are able to clearly understand and make our students understand what is usefulness of life, how we say life is useful, life was useful. It's very important to understand that Almighty has created this universe with billions and billions of living beings. All living beings have been assigned some specific one role that you can observe yourself. I'll quote only honey bee. Now there is only one bee which is known as honey bee which can produce honey. No other living being can do that. Similarly, the other that I can quote is eagle. What is the role of eagle? Eagle's role is to cleanse like in jungles and like in forests, anywhere. If there is a dead body lying, it has the capability to in her lens, eye lens, that from 2-3 kilometers it can find out, and through the smell at 2-3 kilometers away it can locate, yes, there is a dead body lying. It comes, and the beaks are so sharp, so strong, they tear off the skin of any toughest animal, take out everything, cleans it, and leave the skin there so that it is cleansed and pollution is checked. I'll not quote many examples. All highly educated people are sitting here. The thing that I want to point out is, if Almighty has given a specific role to each and every living being out of billions who are living beings, what about human being? I think it's very easy to say that human being is the only living being which has been given unlimited powers, unlimited capabilities, and it is capable of doing anything. Now the point is, then how does one human being think about oneself? At least first criteria one has to be very clear about is that he has to rise above self. It's only like if I know how to dress well, if I know how to eat well, if I know how to earn well, if I know how to make best bank balance, probably this is no way little more than an animal's role, because this is a minimal role. How to sustain better, how to sustain best oneself. So in any case, this human being who has been given all enormous unlimited potential of all kinds, there the role assigned is that you can rise to any heights, you can go any deep, you can acquire as much as you can contribute as much as you can. So all dimensions are left open, so that when you complete your life, you feel you are fully satisfied. You have done so much for the universe, so much for the world, so much for the society, so much for the country, so much for the family. Now, knowing all this, when we come back to our Indian society, if we are not able to put in the minds of the students that in our country, still 40% or more than 40% society, population is not able to eat well, is not able to dress well, is not able to live well, is not able to take care of education well, is not able to take care of health well. All basic 5 parameters, our more than 40% of the society is lacking. Now, as teachers, because most of us are teachers, if we are not able to pierce into the minds of our students that this is one common role, this is one common goal, which will ascertain usefulness of our life, how to do it, which story to tell, how to interpret where, through which chapter of subject, through which particular subject, in what way, and by becoming role model ourselves. I will not go into those details. But I will say that usefulness of taking birth as a human being in a specific country, and that is the role for the country. Now, other is, if world is looking towards us, then we have a very specific role for the world also. And we can feel pride that all Indians who are living abroad, most of them are spreading fragrance. Most of them about whom we listen, we understand they are being appreciated. There are no bad words for them. And they are trying to keep their culture also alive to some extent. So we can definitely feel that our roots are deep. We are deep rooted. Now I come to, I said, dynamic and useful. Now, if I go towards little more academic side of it, let me read few things from my paper which I prepared for today. Now, first is, now I come to higher education and how to make it dynamic. Higher education system plays an important role for the country's overall development, which includes industrial, social, economic, etc. Next to India and United States, India has the third largest higher education system in the world in terms of size and its diversity, and largest in the world in terms of number of educational institutions. But gap between supply and demand in higher education, India has a low rate of enrollment, that is gross enrollment ratio, GER, at only 19%. If we compared to India and Brazil, 26% and 36% respectively. So that means we are lagging behind on this. Now, why we are lagging behind? There could be many factors, but one factor I would like to highlight, which has to be understood in depth and with clarity. What is that? We very well understand that we have 22 official languages as per our government policy, and then more than 280 languages which have not been recognized for educating the people. Only 22 have been picked up. So most of the people say, if you exclude only 5% of the total population which knows how to write and read correctly in English, I think you'll agree with the figure that that figure will not be more than 5%. So 95% of the population works and is comfortable in one's own language. Now, all our higher studies, which can fetch them jobs, I would even say, because higher education definition is after 12th standard, it is higher education. One is undergraduate, other is postgraduate, and so on. So all such educated people are expected to know and work in English all over the country, in any office, anywhere, private or government or semi-government, anywhere. I know in states, there are state languages prevailing, but the point is, one can hardly go above a clerk level if one doesn't understand English. What I'm trying to say is that not more than 10% we can expect to come forward for higher education if they don't know English. I can quote hundreds of examples on this, because these days passing 10th standard exam or 12th standard exam with very, very little knowledge of English, it's easily possible. But if you can't work in English, if you find difficult to read in English, understand English, which is a common thing. So that means what I'm trying to say is that to make this higher education dynamic, we will have to look into this quite in detail and quite in depth, that without our own languages, providing them proper books, providing them proper studies, providing them proper lectures, providing them online material, till they do that, we are able to provide that, we will not be able to use more than 10% of the society's intellect. And obviously, this higher education percentage will also not grow. Now, this is one aspect. And if now, like we just mentioned about China, we just mentioned about US. So in US, they have their own language, English. In China, they have their own language, Chinese. And all courses, professional courses, higher education, all courses are available in their own languages. A best doctor, postgraduate doctor, specialist of a subject, he performs, he studies, he understands, he writes papers, he writes books, he creates inventions, all in one's own language. And that is not the case only in China. That is the case in Japan. That is the case in Germany. That is the case in Israel, 83 lakhs population, Hebrew. And if someone has to go for higher studies in Germany or any country, whichever language that country has, one has to firstly study that language and clear the exam. A number of students from our India go to US, for USR, Russia, for medical courses. They firstly undergo that 1 year course of language and then they study it. What I'm trying to say is, it is just not possible to understand in depth and give your best in a language which I'm not comfortable with. And if we want the best from the people, if we want their own initiative for the people for studies, for going ahead on subjects which relate to our intellect, then of course this language part has to be looked into seriously. Now, this I explained because there is a large gap. And gap is because people don't feel comfortable when they shift from their own language to English. They may drag on, but finally, though, they don't end up anywhere. Now, next is lack of research work. Number of research papers published in India has increased continuously for the past few decades, but reflected in low citation impact if compared with other countries like Germany, United States, France, and China. This is a fact. You can look at yourself. And why it is so? As I clearly said, that one thinks, one understands, and one reproduces in one's own language, and in depth that thinking, and it is not possible otherwise. So, and other thing is that almost out of these papers, I think you have better information than me, hardly something reaches to the ground level through these papers, out of these papers. And generally, I hope you people don't mind, we write these papers because it is a requirement for us to get upgradation, to get promotion in our teaching career, and so on. The researches which would really bring out something, and writing papers which would be really very innovative, because the requirement is very little. So they are not able to create an impact. So that's why if we are able to ensure our education system availability in higher educations, as our new education policy 2020 has said, that all higher education courses should be provided in Indian languages also. Now, next comes, presently, there is a very less collaboration of higher education institutes with industries. That is also a very big point, because now, like, we have a 10th pass student, 12th pass student, and he doesn't want to go for higher studies. He wants to pick up technical subjects, but we don't expose him to field the least, to industry the least. And industry doesn't know which candidate, which particular student is interested there. So some tie-up of industries, even at graduation level or even at post-graduation level, yes, some good work is happening. Now, why IITs are different? Just imagine. The best part in IITs is that IITs provide the research requirement of industries. Industries understand that if there is any problem in our system, in our machines, or we want to create new thing, if we want to develop some new product, then who would give us the best service? Then IITians, professors, with a team of students, they generate this kind of work. And that's why IITs are different to other engineering colleges. Because other engineering colleges are generally not tied up with the industry. Whereas our IITs are definitely tied up with the industries all the time, at least for 2 years. While they are studying on their own subject, they are also working in the laboratory. They are also working on research projects of the professor. And so much so that these professors are not only taking salary from IITs, they are bread earners for IITs. Because when they take a project, there is a system that they will charge so much from the industry, and part of it, so much will go to the IITs. So there is a proper system that they get linked up with the industry. So our education at all stages, I would say whether they are ITIs or they are IITs, our courses, whether it is diploma course or engineering course, not only that, I would say we have agriculture subject. How many agricultural institutes are tied up with the research institutes of agriculture and also with the field? Because in our country, agriculture output is 25% to 50% of other countries which are doing well in agriculture. The return from agriculture is generally 25% as compared to other countries which are doing well in agriculture. Because education is linked up with agriculture there. Here, education means books. Agriculture means field, means farmer. So these gaps are required to be filled if we want to make our education system dynamic. Because if they are not linked with the subject on ground, it will be difficult. I'll proceed further. Low employability of graduates is one of the major problems in India. Placement outcome also drop significantly as we move away from the top institutes. I already explained. The vision of National Education Policy 2020, Government of India has tried to resolve the concerns and issues in this policy. The National Education Policy envisions an education system rooted in Indian ethos and contributes directly to the transforming India, that is Bharat, sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all and thereby making India a global knowledge superpower. So that is what the expectation is there in our new education policy. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I would like to compare our system of education for higher education with other countries also a little bit. Now, I think we are aware that first choice of Indian students is to go abroad and study there. Whether they go to Canada, whether they go to Australia, they are getting bank loans, they are clearing their one exam of language, and then they proceed. I don't know how many of you have experience, but I have experience of some of the students. What they do there now, like if it's a 2 years course of post graduation, they expect from them that they will be working on projects one after the other, and they'll be trying to look into the information part themselves, find books, whether online or in the library. They'll be given project to project, and they will apply their mind and they will work on it. Maybe a small group of students, maybe some individual projects, some to a group of two, three, four people, and side by side, they expect them to earn some hours. They should earn for themselves. They should not be burden on their parents, because whatever loan has been given by the bank, it has been given to them. So they should see that how they can sustain. And I know of boys and girls even from rich families. I very well remember there was a girl from a rich industrialist, and she was saying that for 3 months when I couldn't get any job there, besides my studies, I was coming into depression. I said, why so? Your father is able to afford. She says, no, that is not the culture there. Everybody earns at one's own, and it is added to our marks. I said, what kind of job you are doing there? They said, cleaning dishes in McDonald's and working in pubs, picking up the glasses of drinks, and so on. We do any kind of job. There's no feeling that I'm doing a job which is not respectable to me. And they have to work much more longer hours, because college project, university project they have to do. They have to cook food for themselves to be reasonably sustaining, and clean their room, clean their beds, clean their clothes. Everything they are doing themselves. I feel probably those who go there, if we analyze them objectively, this is a transformation. In our Indian homes, they are not at all used to it. They will not even pick up their utensils from the table and go to the kitchen to keep it back there. They are always ordering to mama, or to any younger sister, or to younger brother, or to some maid. So there, what I feel is they transform their way of thinking, how to be self-sustaining, how to feel dignity of labor, how to feel better by doing more work. So what I'm trying to say is that only providing bookish education probably does not transform their personality, does not make them grow. And then in their system, what they do is, at least I know about Canada and Australia, that after their 2 years of studies, they give them 3 years visa extra. They don't give them permanent visa. That 3 years, they expect them to work there and earn and repay their loans. So that system makes them understand, makes them grow. They are different people. They are different. I know at least two of them who were hardly able to make their 10th and 12th standard pass. Gradually, when they picked up their role, picked up their object that they want to go abroad and study there, they had to have more than 50% marks, 50 to 60% marks. They got it, studied in undergraduation. They cleared their IELTS exam. And now, when I see them, I feel pity. Had they been in this country for doing another 2 years education with that average their average performance up to graduation level, they would have been nowhere. But one of them came back and he was given good job because he, first point is, do we understand how to think? Point is, are our students able to think properly? The ability to think gives the best help to grow. The ability to prioritize things gives you best help to grow. To build confidence, that makes you achieve heights. Interest to work more, work hard, takes you anywhere. So now, just by reading books, just by getting more marks, just by somehow mugging up some material, probably we are not able to transform. Now, I would here like to categorize students into 4 categories. One is institutes of national importance. Now, they may be 100, they may be 200. Keep them aside because there the brightest stuff goes, who have the best intellectual capability proven. Not that others don't have, but they have the proven. So they join those institutes, and there the systems are such that they are able to grow and not only work well within the country, they are able to work anywhere best in the world also. Now, which is the second category? Second category is postgraduate students or from professional colleges, which are not of national or state importance. There, whosoever passes, whosoever clears MBA, clears BBA, clears engineering exam, I think if you are aware about the reality, getting 20 to 25,000 rupees job a month satisfies them because they are not offered even 15,000. They are doing such jobs which they don't like to tell others because they have not learned much. And similar is the situation if there are postgraduates with humanities, with science, with commerce, but they don't have any specific skills, or they are not able to go much higher on academic side. Just they have added one degree after the other. They don't reach anywhere because other aspects of the personality which really take them further could not be grown in them. And third category is undergraduates who have not been from any national institutes of importance. Now, like if I talk about Delhi University, if nobody gets admission less than 90%, 92%, all these colleges are of national importance. So they will have to grow, they will have to work hard. Maybe some aspects they may not be able to take care of, but yes, on academic side, if they are there in the college, they have to compete, they have to maintain their position. So they'll be, but I am talking about maybe rest of lakhs of colleges all over the country in rural, suburban, urban areas, which are not institutes of importance, state level importance or national level importance. So there, it's only like whatever is going on is mugging up, mugging up, mugging up. That's what I understand. And that's why on the ground, and since they could not never be related with the industry, with the kind of work they have to do further, or with any kind of research they have to do. So these and fourth category is of professionals, and that I explained. And last is that after 12th, those who joined IITIs or medical support courses. So there also, maybe as per the circumstances, jobs may be there, jobs may not be there. But I think the other aspects where we need to think with better dynamism, with better how world is going, how things are working, and maybe innovatively we have to think. how to change or transform these students' minds. So next I will take up our policy also envisages the curriculum and pedagogy of our institutions must develop among the students a deep sense of respect towards fundamental duties and constitutional values. Yes, here I would say, even if a student is studying in Delhi University, I'm not sure whether these aspects we try to ingrain in them, bonding with one's country and conscious awareness to one's roles and responsibilities in the changing world. Next is the vision of the policy is to instill among learners a deep rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds. Here I would like to explain a little. I would say, why should one feel pride in India if one doesn't know anything about India? Now, yesterday, in a DNA program that you have in the channel, Sudhir was asking a question. Which is the oldest recognized university of the world, which is in India? And that answer for that was Nalanda University. Now, Nalanda University, though I'm a civil engineer, I could not know about what best it has done on civil engineering site. I could know it only in Oxford University when I was on a walking tour. Somebody told me, had you been to, you are explaining Oxford University walking pathways and all that. Have you been to Nalanda? I said, sorry, no. Then I went 3 times. And let me tell you, as a civil engineer, whatever brickwork has been done there, whatever quality of bricks is there, whatever corbels are there, whatever arches are there, and whatever planning concepts are used there 1,000 years before, because it was destroyed by Alauddin Khilji's son, and the libraries were burning for more than 6 months. And there, if you see that quality of engineering, civil engineering done there, as a civil engineer, I can claim we are not even at 25% today of what has been depicted there. Believe me. Now, if we could do it there, or if you go to South Indian temples and see the vastness of those temples and huge stone beams, columns, I mean, all put there in place in precision, such huge temples, could it ever be done without having advanced engineering and technology in civil engineering? Was it possible to do it through elephants? You go to Uttaranchal Pradesh, there is a place Gopeshwar, in, and there in that temple, it is at 6,500 feet. And there such large elements of stone, which is not from that belonging to that area, columns, beams. In that Chamoli earthquake, we went there for repairs and other guidance being provided to the people for their houses, retrofitting and repairs and all that. But not 1/10 of a millimeter that temple got disturbed. Such a huge temple and such big elements. The most surprising part was, at that height, such big elements of stone, beams, columns, how could they be taken up the um, up the hill? So till we understand our country, till we understand the achievements of our country, till we know our potential, we will not be able to really feel that pride about our country. So very important is, and such like hundreds and hundreds of things are there. And recently, Saraswati River has also been discovered. Its path right from Gujarat to Haryana. So many excavations. Point is, how much we have to learn from there is less important. More important is to understand that we have already achieved such big things. So in our heredity, in our genes, we have lot. The point is how to make a path to really achieve to those heights. So further, now there are few fundamental policy principles of the national education policy. I'll just read out, will not take much of your time. Education is a public service. Access to quality education must be considered a basic right of every student, a basic right of every student. Substantial investment in a strong, vibrant public education system, as well as the encouragement and facilitation of true philanthropic, private, and community participation. Very important. No hard separations between arts, science, between vocational and academic streams, etc., to, to eliminate harmful hierarchies among the silos, among and silos between different areas of learning. Next, multidisciplinary and holistic education across the sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and sports to ensure unity and integrity of all knowledge. Creativity and critical thinking to encourage logical decision making and innovation. Now, yes, I would like to quote here creativity and critical thinking to encourage logical decision making and innovation. Here we should look towards our scheme of startups. These days, if we are reading newspaper, if we are looking to what is happening, these startups are doing wonders, right from rural side to urban side. I would not like to quote, but I think that list runs into thousands startups, and those are all innovations. And they have been able to do it because there are institutes which are providing them that kind of the education. And gradually now, since government is also encouraging and this concept has come up, so startups should be linked up at all stages wherever possible in colleges, because innovation is not in books. Innovation is there in the brain. Recognizing, identifying, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student to promote holistic development. This is very, very important. That while we try to look each student towards each student from the point of view, what potential he has, what interest he has, what inclination he has, and then what weaknesses also he has, how to put him on the track. Now, this is very important. This has to be done one-to-one basis. I know problems are there, but if we selectively do some students in some number and distribute amongst ourselves and do this, this is a great service that we can do. To inculcate ethics, human and constitutional values like empathy, respect for others, cleanliness, courtesy, democratic spirit, all this if we have to do, then probably this has to be kept in mind while dealing with students and while dealing with our subjects also, that how we incorporate these issues also as part of the education in a most convincing manner, promoting multilingualism and power of Indian languages in teaching and learning. That I have already explained. I don't think I'll go in more detail into that. Life skills such as communication, cooperation, teamwork. I think I explained that if it is happening in other countries and they are able to deal with our average students, let me claim, those who are going there, they are not above average. They are just average or little above average. And if they are able to transform them through their own system, which I explained, what is happening in America, sorry, Australia, UK, in Canada. So we can also think in a different way and see how it can happen here. Extensive use of technology in teaching, learning, removing language barriers, increasing access to Divyang students. Now here I would like to just make a mention. One of the students who was studying in Delhi University in Hindi medium in economics, he got his eyesight problem while he was in first year BA. Second year, it was at the peak. And third year, he was not able to see at all. He went to an academy in Dehradun, government academy. And for 1 year, he studied there through the system of sound, through technology. Then he comes back, he completes his economics graduation and post-graduation. And believe me, in third attempt, he made it into an IAS. And now he is working in Madhya Pradesh government. He was collector. Now he is in charge of social justice department. Now, during his tenure, he was able to prove that he was the best collector amongst all the collectors of the districts of the state. He reached those heights. Now, had this institution, which was there in Dehradun, would not have taken his charge or such students' charge who have great potential and with the support of technology. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes we can't see the far-reaching effects, but as on day to take care of the total society and to have that inclusive concept, that's very important, whether it is in terms of education or it is in terms of otherwise able society. So I'll proceed further. Now next is phasing out affiliation system in 15 years. What I'm trying to say is affiliation is fine, but affiliation should not be the strength. Because this college is affiliated to some private college is affiliated. You must have noticed there were some colleges in Delhi also. Those who became deemed university, then they became universities. So that affiliation is not a matter of respect, is not a matter of regard. Institutions should grow in their own way with their own specializations and should be able to make their name and should be able to create product which will be recognized, and then they should be able to stand independently. So that's why even in the policy it is there that phasing out affiliation system in 15 years. Next, private philanthropic partnership, not for profit. This is very important. Now, what happened? When there was a flood of engineering colleges, the situation reached, once I read in the newspaper that the number of students, those who qualify in Punjab, 12th standard exam with maths is less than the number of seats available in engineering in Punjab in private engineering colleges. Because all money making society, all money making commercial people, they jumped into it, and education was not the purpose. Purpose was commerce. Purpose was to make money. So this is very important. Investment in education is fine, but objective must be pious and that must be maintained. Then it works. Public investment in education sector, I'll forget about it. Again, integration of vocational, teacher and professional education. Vocational education and professional education and teaching. This should be quite properly linked. Special education zone for disadvantaged regions. It's very important because in our country we have tribal areas, we have remotest areas where if we don't reach there, they will not be able to reach to the education. Swami Vivekananda said that if schools can't reach to the student, no, if teachers, students can't reach to the school, school should reach to the students. So we have to see that that section of the society we have to take care of. Next is promoting traditional art and Lok Vidya. Now, just a small question comes in my mind. We have promoted cricket as much as possible. We are investing so much of money in cricket game. And how much sports cricket is able to provide, we should objectively look into it. How many number of, I would say, students or persons are really able to involve in cricket? What is that big number? And what is the investment? And what is the purpose of sports? Purpose of sports is not only watching it on TV. Purpose is not to only count the records. Purpose is not that it is in fashion. Sports purpose is to provide enjoyment, entertainment, and physical exercise to the person. Now, when we have 40 to more than 40% people who can't afford even medicine, even education, if we don't provide them in big number, if we don't promote our games like Kabaddi and Kho, where no implement is required, very small ground is required, which can be conducted on the hilltop and also on the seaside. And people are doing that. But to the extent we have promoted, we should promote it in colleges also, because things get promoted from top, not from bottom. Because there, when they play cricket and Kho and Kabaddi, they feel we don't have anything to play, so we are doing it. But let people not see what we are playing. If you play cricket, yes, that is something very great. So what I'm trying to say is, purpose of sports should not be forgotten. Context of our country should not be forgotten. The affordability of the people, and if we objectively look into it, Kho and Kabaddi are such games where it's very difficult to carry on for more than 45 minutes. That is the upper limit you can play in continuity. So in all ways, when I analyze, I feel our Indian games are meant to support the society, to really objectively pursue these the purpose of the games and sports. So I think we also should look into it. That's important. And that's why they are called Lok Vidya. Now, next point that I feel I should make a mention of is, I have skipped a lot of material, a good high quality education. Now, goes beyond saying, how do we analyze the results of higher education? In few words, if you have to say, knowledge combined with competence, combined with orientation. These are the three factors that determine the quality of higher education. I repeat, the quality of higher education is judged by three factors. One is knowledge combined with competence, because alone knowledge cannot work. What is our competence? Need not explain. And combined with orientation, how much further we can go deep into it. So these three things define and determine the quality of higher education. Next, higher education institutes need to improve quality, reputation, and establish credibility. Because once we take the ownership of our institutions and work hard on it, then we are able to achieve this. If we don't think that I get salary, that's why I go there. And let me quote, you'll be surprised to listen. I went to Banastali. This is a university now, and that was around 40 years before. I went in 60s. 60s means 50 years, more than 50 years before. I was a student. And there I was surprised. Dr. Karan Singh was presiding annual function. Suddenly, that lights went off. There was complete dark. It is a girls' institution. Believe me, not a it was complete pin drop silence. There was no hooting, no shouting, nothing of the sort, as if nothing has happened. And this is purely a girls' institute. Now it is a university. I was so pleased to listen that Vande Mataram there. I went to the professor's house. It was a very small house. He had 5 daughters. Two of his daughters, immediately after the program, was sitting, one on tabla and one on another instrument, and third daughter was in the kitchen trying to cook something, and he was on the seat of his own riyaz. When I went and requested him, he said, yes, I'll sing it once for you, because the girls also sang very well, but this is the tune and all that. I heard that Vande Mataram, and then what he told me, he said, I wanted you to serve tea, but because of some problems of the management, we could not get salary for the last 6 months. So I don't have milk and sugar in my house. So sorry. But what he says, because of some problems of the management, he is talking from their side, and he is so devotedly working there. So what I am trying to say is, education is such a noble cause. There, if we start relating to what we give to the institute, what we provide to the students, and in return, what do we get? How much more we can get in England, how much more we can get in other academy or other university, then the basic purpose of coming in the field of education is wiped off. It's very important to maintain the dignity of this particular thing. And people learn through our real behavior. Students will look to us what we are in reality, not what we speak or what we lecture. It's a very tough path on which we are going. But yes, this is the foundation of humanity. This is the foundation of our country. And on this basis only, this country can grow. So I just made a mention. Yeah. Next is government must collaborate between Indian higher education institutions and top international institutions. That government is still doing, and it should do more so that students can intermingle, students can learn from each other, and students can transfer. And this is always very, very useful. In higher education institutes, industrial collaboration and cooperation must be there. I mean, that I said it before. There is no need to focus the graduate students, focus on graduate students by providing them such courses in which they can achieve, sorry, there is a need to focus on the graduate students by providing them such courses in which they can achieve excellence, gain deeper knowledge of subject so that they will get jobs. It's very important. Till we don't realize the main problem of the student, that after going out, where would one go? Where would one reach? How would one earn? And how would industry or office or any work he will be able to pick up? Or, yes, it's good if he's able to develop his spirit of becoming an entrepreneur instead of becoming a job seeker. If we can motivate him to become a job provider, that serves the purpose of this country manifold. So either he should be able to get some good job or get involved in some service, or he becomes an entrepreneur. It would reduce necessary rush to higher education, unnecessary rush to the higher education. In the context of vastness of the country, improving access to education via distance and online learning with extensive use of technology in teaching and learning, removing language barriers, shareable learning sources. This is very important in the context of vastness of the country and so much of variety. I said it before, promote startup culture in higher education through creativity and critical learning, critical thinking to encourage logical decision making and innovation. Effective governance and leadership of higher education institutions. I mean, this goes without saying. It is effective governance and leadership that enables the creation of a culture and excellence and innovation in higher education institutions. The common feature of all world-class institutions globally, including India, has indeed been the existence of strong self-governance and outstanding merit-based appointments of institutional leaders. I think I've already said about promotion of Indian languages, so I need not repeat it. Yes, one particular sentence would be important. In order to preserve and promote culture, one must preserve and promote a culture's language, because culture is difficult to promote and preserve without the support of language. Now, just for information, I'll read just 4 or 5 paragraphs. Unfortunately, Indian languages have not received their due attention and care, with the country losing over 220 languages in last 50 years alone. UNESCO has declared 197 Indian languages as endangered. Too often, no concerted actions or measures are taken to preserve or record these rich languages oblique expressions of a culture. Even the 22 languages of 11th schedule of Constitution of India are facing serious difficulties on many fronts. Teaching and learning of Indian languages need to be integrated with school and higher education at every level. For languages to remain relevant and vibrant, there must be a steady stream of high quality learning and print material in these languages, including textbooks, workbooks, videos, plays, poems, novels, and magazines, etc. Languages must also be consistent official languages must also have consistent official updates to their to their vocabularies and dictionaries widely disseminated so that the most current issues and concepts can be effectively discussed in these languages. India has remained quite slow in producing such learning and print materials and dictionaries to help keep its languages optimally vibrant and current with integrity. The vision of the policy is to instill among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds. I will close here. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I don't know how much would it be beneficial for you, but yes, I could share my sincere thoughts with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderfully inspiring talk. So you covered so many very important ideas, so many very important aspects associated with higher education. You talked about the importance of promoting Indian languages, the responsibility that teachers have, and what role we play. And you also made a very nice point, sir, about the idea of promoting startups and how they also contribute very effectively to to nation building and also contributing to employment. So thank you so much, sir, for those wonderful points. And sir, our chat box is actually full of words of appreciation from our participants, and they also have some questions, sir. So if you allow, can we take a few questions from our participants?
If participants still have patience to continue, I don't have any problem.
So the questions and the comments are pouring by the second. So I'm sure that they are very energetically waiting to have their questions answered.
Can you identify a few questions one by one so that I can do that?
Yes, sir. Most definitely, sir. I'll just do that. The first question is by Sonam Zango, and she says, the modern education system. Okay, I request the participants to please not post anything in the chat box when we are reading, because that scrolls the chat box down. Okay. All right. So I will just I'll continue reading this comment by Sonam Zango. The modern education system and present scenario has changed lots in education domain. Has changed lots in education domain due to high emerging as well as involvement of polities in higher education in Indian universities. That is that is also seen in ancient Nalanda University. Um, is it possible to make free higher education from political games to make excellence and regain our quality of education? So I think she's talking about politics and education and higher education, sir.
Yes, yes. I do appreciate. I fully appreciate this question. Now, let me quote that example again. Banasthali Vidyapeeth, which is maybe around 60, 70 kilometers from Jaipur in Dhausa. There, actually, one Chief Minister Hiralal Shastri His daughter died. She was only 11 years. And he was Chief Minister of Rajasthan at that point of time. He thought that now I should shift to education now. And in that Banasthali, when I visited it 50 years before, imagine the quality of education there was, they were able to have a swimming pool, they were able to have a boating club, they were able to have big healthy horses for horse riding. They had all sports, and girls were washing their clothes and their chadars and all that, whatever bedspread. They were washing themselves, they were ironing themselves, they were washing their own clothes. And the culture was, my both sisters studied there. My sister tells me, Bhaiya, can I go and get my this chappal get repaired from Jagdish ji? I said, who is Jagdish ji? So he is the person who does it. So mutual respect and dignity of labor and development of personality, all this was going side by side. And if a teacher was selected, he or she was kept there for 15 days. He or she will experience getting to the class, conveying lectures and all that, and he or she will be observed in the guest house, that he can mix up in that system. And then consent will be taken from him. Consent will be given by the college. At that time, it was a college. So such like things, in fact, cannot be taken care of just by by an order. I think educations are built up. Educations can get built up all over the world. All over the world, education is such a different thing. And I think I'm thankful to this candidate who has asked it. But I think it's need more of thinking, and it is not a superficial subject. It's an in-depth subject, and it can't be done for whole of the country in one go by one order. Each and every institution has to ensure that this politics does not enter.
Right. Definitely, sir. I think that's a very important point that you've made over there, sir. We have a query by another query by Vikas Kapoor from Ramjas College. Um, okay, I again request the participants to please not post when the question is being read, because that hinders the process of reading. So Vikas Kapoor asks, sir, how can we increase the significance and relevance of teaching? How can we increase the significance and relevance of teaching social sciences to the students when everybody's first priority is to get through either in economics or commerce? Why is the study of social sciences seen as the last choice by most of the students? That's the question, sir.
I must say it's a tragedy of our country. It's a tragedy of our country that humanities are not being taught in many of the good schools. They have science stream, they have bio stream, they have math stream, they have commerce stream, but they don't have humanities stream. Because now we are looking at anything and everything from the commercial point of view. And we are not judging even a subject impartially as to how much near and dear it is to my heart. The first point comes whether we are impartially and independently taking a decision to go ahead in any subject without keeping in mind what would I fetch out of it. If that kind of, if that kind of confirmation is there from oneself, then I'm sure somebody will reach somewhere. But becoming part of a crowd, now this crowd is going that way, that crowd is going on, our crowd is not as good as this.
Hmm.
That will not help, because time can keep on changing for any subject. But yes, those who are deeply interested in any subject, always they will find a way to go ahead.
Very right, sir. I think that's a very right perspective that you have shared, and it is the need of the teachers to share this understanding with students so that they make conscious choices in life. Thank you for that, sir. There is a another question by Ms. Monica Sharma. She says that, sir, some students are from rural backgrounds and their basic English language is not good. And sometimes they have to work with their parents in the fields in the times of crop harvesting. So they are not able to attend college. These are their problems. And as teachers, we sometimes feel helpless, and our education system does not provide any solution as there is compulsion of attendance. So, how to approach this problem?
I think two way I would like to suggest on it. One is that now time is changing. Prime Minister has taken this call very seriously. In three of the places, one in Bihar, other in Assam, third in Bengal, he has publicly declared that now we will have doctors studying medical courses, engineering courses, studying in local languages, in their own languages, and the weakest of the weakest from Jhuggis, those who are not able to reach to the English schools and English colleges, they will also become doctors and engineers. These are the words. So what I'm trying to say is that is a tragedy of this country, that 90 to 95% people have been ignored. Language is after all a vehicle. Language is not a content in itself. Content is to be produced or communicated or studied or read or written in some language. That is language. So how do we force upon any language? And in this country where English is not the language of any of the states, I would say, except for Nagaland and Mizoram, if we talk of two states, but otherwise, and it is now, it has conquered all over the country, that you can't study in either any language. So, because point is, you know, it's so easy to understand in one's own language, so easy, and write it also. So now what they are doing is in IITs, in NITs, and best engineering colleges and medical colleges, not yet announced, but yes, engineering colleges announced. They have made a task force, and now engineering colleges will allow them to study. Yes, I would be little cautious on this. That I would never say they should not learn English, because now even in China, where all know only Chinese, but those who are going outside China for the interests of China, they are learning Chinese. Besides Chinese, they are learning. That's a compulsion to learn English. So here, we should not mind conducting a bridging courses for those who are not able to understand well in English, or who are not feeling comfortable in English. They should be given more opportunity. They should be given guidance. They should not be forced upon, but their difficulty should be looked into it, so that they are also becoming competent to communicate in English at a later stage after studying in 3 or 5 years in a college. But yes, their understanding of the subject, their communication, their paper writing, question out answer sheet, etc., and books and everything, that should be made available in their own language, and this should be demanded by the people. In fact, this is a democracy.
Right.
Now, why we went so down? When I think about it, because we accepted everything with folded hands. Had the society come forward, how can you force me in any other language? No. Now, I think one of the teachers I know, Sushma Yadav, if you know her name, she is in UGC now. She is from Delhi. She did political science. She wrote her papers in Hindi. She said, "Okay, I will translate," but and she taught in the college. She came into teaching. because she was bright student, but she said, no, I will deal with only in my, and I know a number of good bureaucrats who did their IIT from IITs and then cleared their civil service exam, but they picked up their medium as Hindi or medium as their own, even this year also. So finally, I know a student who was a postgraduate in English, very good at English, and got good prize. And when he picked up Hindi medium, I asked him, he's in Punjab IAS. Why did you pick up Hindi as your medium? He said, sir, I'm not a fool. To the extent I can think in depth and to the extent I can express sharply in my own language without searching words, it is my language. I come from Rajasthan. So point is, it has to go from both ways, but they should have more confidence that, and second point that she said, that they are not able to come to the class. I think provisions should be made in the colleges that we will also deliver these lectures online also, side by side. Those who are not able to attend, they can take the that lecture and then have their link, and when they come to the class, they should be ready. They should not have an excuse, I did not attend that. And attending to a class on mobile is not a big challenge now. So it has to be worked from both sides. Solutions will be there. When demand is there, solution will be there.
Absolutely, sir. So you're very wonderfully mentioned about, like, you've given a very realistic perspective that even as Indian languages need to be promoted, but at the same time students also should be made competent in English so that they are able to get ahead in life. So there are so many questions, but I think we will want to take this comment which is made by Dr. Asiya Khan from Kashmir. She is writing, and she says that it's not a question, sir, but an important observation. So one important takeaway from your lecture is that I would really like to express that in being despite being a civil engineer, you're an excellent teacher, as undoubtedly you have been able to motivate us to listen to you with so much interest and enthusiasm. Even throughout the day, but even after attending the sessions in the day, and the way you made us understand things. So thank you so much for this motivational lecture, sir. So that's what Dr. Asiya Khan has to say.
Can I respond in three sentences?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
This year when this GEE exam, engineering exam, entrance exam, was decided to be conducted in 13 languages. I wish to one of my bureaucrats in Kashmir, he is Dr. Abid Shah, and I congratulated him. I said, now you can enjoy, you can make a Diwali now, because Urdu is also one of the languages in which people can study in engineering and medical. He said, yes, sir, yes, sir. Then I said, but are you sure in your state, Urdu, in Urdu language, maths and biology 12th standard are taught? Then he had a small face. Sir, no. So I will try to convey this remark to her that they should also try to work on the other side. That if in Malayalam, Kerala, they don't teach science subjects in Malayalam language, and in Marathi also, surprisingly, it's such a pride state for their own language. They are not taking up science subjects in 11th and 12th in Marathi. And in Kashmir, if not in Urdu, then even decisions of Government of India, how would they reach to the ground?
Right.
Thanks for her comments.
Thank you so much, sir. So there are a lot of appreciative comments that, I mean, of course, that time will not be enough to finish writing them. So there's somebody to finish spelling them out. There is another person from Badnapur district in Jalna. And he also says that the session is very motivational, informative, knowledgeable, as well as real situation in our Indian teaching, learning, and languages in higher education has been talked about. So very excellent session, sir. Thank you so much. So So that's what was another comment like. So, sir, it looks like that we have, like, all the participants have benefited immensely from your talk today, where so many very important aspects of higher education were touched upon by you. And we're very fortunate to have, to have you amongst us today, and where you could spare some time and interact with our participants. So, thank you so much for that enlightening talk, sir.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody, right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. There's a request to the participants that we will have a group photograph with our speaker. So we are turning on the cameras. So all of you, please switch it on from your side also, so that we can take a photograph. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks a lot.